This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
The New York Mets are swept after mustering only 3 hits in a shutout loss to the San Diego Padres, and they finish off a road trip 3-3. Welcome into the Mets Postcast here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I'm your Postcast host, Chris Schubert, here with you after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. And boy, did that one suck. Just a lifeless effort across the board for the New York Mets, specifically on the offensive side of things. And going into the trade deadline just 24 hours or less than 24 hours from now, hopefully there's more moves in the cards for the New York Mets. Hopefully there's some reinforcements on the way, but not the way they wanted to finish off what started off as such a great road trip. Getting that sweep on the road in San Francisco, feeling good about the way they were playing ball going into this series with San Diego, and just day after day after day in this series, it just got worse and worse and worse. Let's get started with what is, I think, the big takeaway from this game. The Mets, I think they have a Clay Holmes problem.
This is what you'll be talking about.
The final line for Klay Holmes, we'll share the stats. 3 2/3, 8 hits, 4 runs, 2 of them earned, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, did allow a home run. And I don't want me describing this current situation as a problem to ignore what Klay Holmes was at the beginning of the season for the New York Mets. I think when signed by this team to be converted from a closer into a starter, many of us were incredibly skeptical of how successful this idea, this experiment, this project would be. I think many of us, myself included, saw their opinions change very quickly with each passing spring training start from Klay Holmes looking better and better and better, and the stuff just looking excellent each passing start. Then the regular season started. We thought maybe a bit of a reality moment on opening day when he got that start in Houston, but Klay Holmes was excellent for the first half of this season. Klay Holmes was a very good starter. By all metrics that you would use, you would classify this project, this experiment, as a success. It's just not working right now. And I think it's not working for a very easy reason. Klay Holmes has never thrown this many innings before. And the Mets may be monitoring it very closely with certain metrics and barometers that they're keeping an eye on. Klay Holmes is probably making sure that he's not pushing himself too much, but it just feels to me, my naked eye, not looking at the under the hood numbers, not looking at any of the stuff that the Mets have available to them, it just looks like a guy who is just hitting a wall. And that's not to say that the rest of this contract is going to be a disaster. It's not to say that Klay Holmes doesn't have value to this team in 2025. It just feels like a reevaluation needs to occur, because it feels like Klay Holmes is better suited giving this Mets team an inning as a reliever or 2 or 3 innings as a piggyback to somebody else. I wonder if the Mets are better off having Klay Holmes be their long man and using Brandon Sproat or Nolan McLean as a starter to get those guys involved. That feels like a better use of the roster that the Mets have in front of them. And today it was a similar story for Klay Holmes. He just couldn't get out of trouble. Gets 2 outs, then allows a guy on. Now his pitch count's elevated, gets himself into trouble. And that's been the theme for the last 4 or 5 starts for Klay Holmes, maybe even longer than that. Just not able to give this Mets team length. We said it last night, other than David Peterson, and they showed a graphic during the game that David Peterson averages like 6.3 innings pitched per start, and the rest of the Mets starters are at like 4 and change. It's a drastic difference between David Peterson and everybody else in this rotation. It's not just Clay Holmes. Frankie Montas has had this problem. Sean Manaea, coming back from the injury, hasn't been able to give this team length. To me, it's okay to admit, hey, we tried to make Clay Holmes a starter this year. We got more than I think we anticipated because he was healthy, because he didn't have any setbacks from making this transition from a closer to a starter. He was able to just take the ball every 5th or 6th day. And so we hit the innings number maybe a little bit earlier than we thought. I trust this front office to be able to pivot If they feel like moving Clay Holmes to the bullpen is the right thing to do, I think it certainly is. It's easier said than done. It's an easier thing to do in theory. It's an easier thing to do if you're playing MLB The Show or out of the park baseball and to make that decision. It's harder to do it in real life. It's harder to do it in the middle of a season where you're trying to hold on to the NL East and you're trying to win a division. And the Phillies just picked up one of the best relievers, Johan Duran, on the trade market. It's easier in practice. It's easier in theory. It's harder on paper. And so I just think the Mets, with 24 hours to go until the deadline, may want to go out and get another starter if they're not going to use the young prospects that they have in their system ready to go. And maybe it's time to move Clay Holmes just for the remainder of this season into a reliever type role, whether it's one inning or it's a multi-inning relief role, whatever the case may be. And then there's no harm in coming back next year now that he's got 100+ innings on his arm, being able to extend that next season and being able to continue to grow that workload. But it is a huge problem right now for the Mets. They're not getting length from anybody not named David Peterson, and Clay Holmes just seems like even when he's able to give the Mets 5 innings, it is a struggle for him to get to those 5 innings. An elevated pitch count again. He threw 80 pitches in 3 2/3. I mean, that's just not going to get it done. Even if he didn't allow any hits, that's just a terrible pitch count. I mean, he's just not going to be able to go deep into games throwing 79 pitches. And again, the 2 outs, allowing the Padres to extend the inning and drive up the pitch count, that is a direct reason why the 2-run score. It's a direct reason why he's unable to go deep into this game and get out of the 4. I mean, Carlos just went out and got him in the bottom of the 4th, knowing that the game was on the line right there, and just didn't happen. So, I think the Mets have a Clay Holmes problem. I don't know exactly what they're going to do about it. With 24 hours or less than 24 hours to go until the deadline, I'm just not sure if there is a move that the Mets can make. And I'll share my thoughts on the Tyler Rogers move when we get to the stuff to keep an eye on. I know Ryan went live on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel before to share his thoughts. I'll share mine then. I don't know if there's another big move in the cards for the Mets. Maybe they reevaluate things after today, but it just feels like every 5th or 6th day when Clay Holmes takes the ball, we all know what this is going to look like. He's going to struggle. He's going to get into trouble early. He's not going to be able to have those clean innings. And then the 4th or 5th inning is going to roll around, and we're all just waiting for the blow-up inning. I mean, this is it's funny enough. David Peterson's the guy we trust the most. These Clay Holmes starts remind me of early career David Peterson, where he'd be good enough, and then you're just kind of waiting for that blow-up inning. Right now, we're kind of just waiting for that blow-up inning for Clay Holmes. And it happened again today, ended up giving 4 runs overall. Just not a good day at the office for Clay Holmes. But it really doesn't matter how well the Mets pitch if this is going to be the offensive effort they're going to get. It was a ton of strikeouts, 10 of them in total in today's game. The Mets only got 3 hits on the board. They had 1 extra base hit. It didn't come until 1 out in the 9th inning. Just a lifeless effort offensively. And when speaking about the trade deadline, with that being the cloud that hovers over all of us here over the next 2 days for this ball club, I don't want to say it's easy to do this, but it is certainly easier to get bullpen arms. It is certainly easier to get a piece for the rotation if the Mets wanted to do that. It is much harder to revamp a lineup. They might be able to add Luis Robert or Cedric Mullins to center field to maybe raise the floor of that position. They're going to have to get there with these guys. Mark Vientos is going to have to start to hit. I know he had another hit today. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But they're going to need the baby Mets to come through. They're going to need Pete to turn it around. They're going to need Lindor to turn it around. They're going to need Soto to be healthy and be back in the lineup. They're going to have to dance with the guys that have got them to this point. There is no major surgery, major overhaul that they're able to make to this lineup over the next 23 or so hours. So just a really tough day across the board. I mean, you're watching Clay Holmes struggle, and with the way the bats are just not being able to get anything. I mean, did they 2 at-bats with runners in scoring position after Nimmo hit the double in the 9th? But other than that, we were going to be talking about a team that didn't have a hit with an at-bat with runners in scoring position. They only left 3 men on base because those are the 3 guys that got on base. I mean, it just was a tough day at the office. And if they're not going to be able to put together some quality at-bats with the pitching and the hitting being in the lull that it is right now, it is just a rough day. And as Hayden just said, just joining anyone else feel like we are a sweep or get swept team. Think about how we were feeling on Sunday after finishing off the sweep against the Giants. And right before that, you swept the Angels at home and you had won 7 in a row. You're feeling so good. And that's baseball. Baseball is a very seesaw type sport. It's going to ebb and it's going to flow. You're going to have hot streaks and cold streaks. But it's just within the last couple of days, you just are quickly reminded just how brutal this game can be at times when things aren't going well, and things did not go well in this series for the New York Mets. There is another injury for us to unfortunately discuss for the New York Mets, as another Met left a game in this series. We'll get to that. Your thoughts. I will share my thoughts on the Tyler Rogers trade, the other stuff to keep an eye on. We'll get to all of it here on the other side. We have all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. Well, that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Are you tired of endlessly scrolling, trying to find the best deal? How about the zone deals from Gametime? They pick the best seats in your section for you. Do you ever wonder what your seat's actually going to look like? I shout out this feature all the time because it is my favorite feature in the Gametime app. You get a panoramic seat view. No surprises about what tickets you're buying, what seats you're going to be sitting in. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. No hidden fees. Worried about what happens if plans change? The Gametime guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and more. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. Perhaps you've been out with friends and you've had that miracle shot on the golf course. They've tried to pull off that ridiculous bet, like a crazy wager or on a hole or a shot. Golf is all about the good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use the promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36. Get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. Back here on the Mets Postcast, Locked On Mets YouTube channel, the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Chris Schubert with you, recapping the Mets getting swept by the San Diego Padres, dropping the finale of this one by a final score of 5-0. One of the other major takeaways in this one, Francisco Alvarez leaving the game in the 6th inning, finished off the 5th inning, but a foul ball went off of the side of his mask. They were kind of checking out his ear and the side of his face. I'm looking over to the left side of my screen right now, and I see Carlos Mendoza meeting with the media. I don't have the sound on, so I don't know if he is sharing anything specifically, but obviously a concern when for the second straight day, the Mets are having somebody leave the game. And now there are questions about when that person is going to be available again. So unfortunate that Alvy has to leave this game. Carlos Mendoza, I'm reading here on social media, passed concussion testing and is dealing with a head contusion. He's going to fly back to New York with the Mets. So that seems to be good. Obviously, passing the concussion test is a huge first step for Francisco Alvarez. They're just calling it a contusion, just like the left foot contusion that Juan Soto picked up last night. So it feels like in both scenarios, the Mets avoided the worst. Juan Soto apparently was available today if the Mets needed him to pinch hit. I said it last night that it felt very easy to give him the day off today. Going into the day off tomorrow, he can have 2 clean days of not participating and then be ready to go on Friday. We'll get into the stuff to keep an eye on, and then we'll get out of here. I know Ryan was live earlier. I know that we've got a day off tomorrow before the Mets are back in action on Friday when they host the Giants. And speaking of the trade deadline, let's talk about the Mets picking up Tyler Rogers and just my quick thoughts. I don't want to take up too much time. I know Ryan shared his thoughts earlier, but the Mets pick up Tyler Rogers from the San Francisco Giants. They do so in exchange for Jose Butto, Drew Gilbert, and Blade Tidwell. And yes, that was a very hefty price tag when you look at it on paper. But my thoughts are this. If you're trying to go for it, you have to give in order to get. And the Mets certainly gave up in order to get somebody that they believe can be their setup man, can be their 1A to Edwin Diaz's 1. I think this moves Ryan Stanek and Gregory Soto and Reed Garrett and Brooks Raley down the totem pole, and Tyler Rogers slides into being that 8th inning guy to set up for Edwin Diaz. So with that being the case, I'm not surprised that the price tag was this high. With how dominant Rogers has been, not just this season, but over the last 5 seasons, I'm not surprised that this was the price tag. And again, we're close to it. We watch these prospects. We keep an eye on all of these players because we know more about our team than anybody else. But Jose Butto probably would have been the roster casualty for any reliever that they brought in at the deadline. So you consider that a wash. Blade Tidwell, we've seen a couple of times this year. Was he starting pitcher 9? If we were doing an actual depth chart, I mean, Jonah Tong's probably in front of him. Brandon Sproat, Nolan McLean definitely in front of him. If the Mets needed another starter, they were going to turn to, I think, Sproat and McLean before Tidwell at this point of the season. With McGill coming back, Paul Blackburn having rehab starts, I think Blade Tidwell was a excess piece. And so the Mets dealt from something that has become a relative strength, the depth of their rotation system, in order to land a high-quality reliever. And then Drew Gilbert, yes, I know he's been crushing the ball down in AAA. Questions about where he fits on the big league roster. You have to give to get. And it should be painful on both sides here. And the Giants, painful because they're choosing to sell. Painful for the Mets because they had to give up in order to get a reliever. Do I love the move? No, I don't love giving up this type of package because I wonder what they could have gotten for this package. But perhaps when we get to, 6 p.m. tomorrow evening and the trade deadline comes and goes, we'll realize that package wasn't going to land a better reliever. The Phillies traded reportedly 2 top 100 prospects to get Johan Duran. None of the pieces the Mets gave up for Rogers were top 100 pieces. So would you be comfortable giving up top 100 prospects for the New York from the New York Mets system to get Duran? I don't know. I don't know if David Stearns would want to do that. I don't know if I would be comfortable doing that. So you have to give to get. I think as the deadline continues to pass and as we get closer to 6 p.m. Eastern, I think the deal's going to look better. It's obviously had some sticker shock here in the moment because it's the first major reliever really that got moved. But the Mets went out and they got a setup man, and that should help them down the stretch. Vientos continued his hitting streak, one of the 3 Mets hits in this game. Good to see him swinging a consistent bat, right? Not so much a hot bat with the big hits. I know he had the home run the other night, but just consistent, at least getting a hit. 8 or 9 games that hitting streak is up to. And then another great outing for Ryan Stanek. And I've tried to be the messenger on this, but I'll do it here again as we close up today's postcast. If you take out, and I know this is easy to do, these events happened. We all watch these games. But if you take out those bad appearances against Washington, you take out the bad appearance against Baltimore, and I know he struggled against Tampa, but even if you want to leave Tampa in there, Ryan Stanek's numbers outside of those bad outings in Washington and against Baltimore, he's got like a sub-3 ERA. He has still been an elite reliever, an elite back-end option, high-leverage option for Carlos Mendoza. I know many of us, we did postcasts for those games where he blew it against Washington. He struggled against Baltimore, against Tampa. We were there for all those games. But if you remove those against teams that they're not going to face, and I've joked that just don't pitch him in the DC, Baltimore metro area. But if you take those outings out, he has been exactly what he was in the postseason for this team last season, a trusted, reliable, go-to high-leverage arm. And he did it again today. The situation wasn't high leverage, but it was another 0 on the board for Ryan Stanek. That is going to do it for us here on this edition of the Mets Postcast. We have a day off tomorrow. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rumors. Enjoy the craziness of the next 23 hours or so as the MLB trade deadline is here. We're back on Friday night breaking down the opener of this series, whatever new faces Tyler Rogers could potentially make his Mets debut, whatever pieces they add, if they add any between now and 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, maybe our chance to see those players in action. And hopefully the Mets can take this day off, reset, recalibrate, and then hit the ground running post-trade deadline. It's going to be August, and it's going to be go time. 2 months of baseball, and then a postseason push. For those of you new here, please subscribe, turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live here on the Mets Postcast on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel. If you're listening to us over in the podcast feed, we appreciate you. You can join us live, share your thoughts after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. The Mets, it's a very lifeless effort today. Only 3 hits, offense nowhere to be seen. They allowed Yu Darvish to look like old Yu Darvish. Yu Darvish, first 4 starts coming back from his injury, was getting hit a lot, giving up a lot of runs. This looked like the Yu Darvish that San Diego was expecting to get, and the Mets certainly helped facilitate that for him. So the Mets will have a day off. They will potentially do some more business, and then they will be back in action on Friday, and we will be right here to break it all down. Enjoy the trade deadline craziness, and have a good one, Mets fans.